Hi, my name is Jess Mahler, and I'm a learning support teacher at Central Dauphin Middle School. This year, I teach 7th grade learning support English and 8th grade learning support reading. And I've also taught 7th grade learning support math in the past. So I've taught a little bit of everything. I also see students throughout the day for study help. So we call it academic enrichment, but it's more like homework help and practice studying for quizzes and tests and things like that. So I am there to support my students throughout the day, in addition to teaching 2 different subjects of my own. I am in the ACTE master's program, and I will be pursuing a concentration in online teaching. So I'm hoping that I can learn more from this class that I can apply to my own teaching. I am partway through the program, so I have taken a few classes already, still have a few more to go. So again, I'm just excited to learn what this class has to offer. So I thought it was kind of interesting for our first assignment that we got to watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix. Now, this is something that my friend had told me about a couple months ago, and I had added it to my list, but just never got around to watching it. So I was kind of excited to see it as part of our assignment. So I actually kind of, found it on my list and started watching it. And wow, it was a lot to take in. Definitely reflected on my own social media use. And I could see a lot of the issues reflected in my own students. I think the thing that jumped out at me the most is the constant competing for attention. They talked about it a lot in the documentary of how these different tech companies are competing to try to get your attention. I feel the same way in my classroom. I'm constantly trying to compete against students' cell phones and, whatever else they have going on. And I'm trying to teach my own lessons. So it's definitely the competition between, who is better, who's going to gain the attention. So I definitely felt that one. There was a scene in the movie where a girl was like just staring at her phone, and her mom asked her a question, and it was like she didn't even hear it. She was just so focused on her phone. And I feel that way too in class sometimes. If I allow students to use their devices for an activity, or if they're supposed to be doing something on the computer, for example, like a Google form or like a different online assignment, it is really hard to keep them on track and, only working on what they're supposed to do, because they get very distracted by those other things competing for their attention. So it's really hard to keep them focused on what the intended learning outcome is. And it's also hard for me to check in with them because they ignore me. They sit on their phone and they don't even hear me half the time. So I feel like I have to walk up to a kid and kind of give them like one of these, like a little wave, to try to get their attention. Whereas I didn't have to do that when I first started teaching. Now, this is my 5th year teaching. So, I haven't been doing this as long as some of my peers here, but if I have noticed this big of a difference in just 5 years, where are we going in the future? I don't know how we're going to remedy this. And I'm kind of nervous to see what's going to happen in the future with this. Another one of the unintended consequences that really stuck out to me in the movie is the lack of authority. There was one scene in the movie where the family was supposed to be eating dinner, as a family and talking to each other, and they had their phones locked away in that case. And, the kids weren't supposed to get their phones out for 1 hour. So the parent was only asking for 1 hour without phone use. And the young girl went over and smashed the box that the phones were in just so she can get her phone out and use it. And she's destroying something, she's disobeying her parents, and her parents just kind of sit there and all right, I guess I'll go talk to her. And it's I don't understand how you can get to the point of not respecting the authority of someone. If they tell you what to do, this is how it is. And I definitely feel that in my own classroom. My students think that just because their cell phones are their personal property, they think personal property trumps my authority as being their classroom teacher. So I found that very frustrating. And, just watching it in the documentary, I just wish that, her parents would have done something more to help her, because obviously she was addicted to the point where she needed to break open a box to get her phone out because she couldn't handle not having it for 1 hour. So again, the lack of respect for authority, I think, is another consequence that comes from this obsession and this addiction to technology. And the last, but probably the most sad unintended consequence, is the major increase in anxiety, depression in, these students. Since I'm a learning support teacher, I do deal with students who have different disabilities. And I will say the past 2 years, we've had a lot more students get identified for things like anxiety and depression. So I think technology definitely plays a big role in that. I think the pandemic also, really made things worse, because when we were in lockdown, what was there to do? You couldn't go out and do things, but you had your cell phone right there. So I think the combination of being locked down for the pandemic and just the overall technology use and obsession that we have nowadays, it's really affecting the mental health of these students. And I can see it in my students. Like they don't know how to emotionally regulate themselves. They don't have coping skills. They were never taught these things. It's almost like the technology is like making them skip like a maturity level, and they're kind of trying to be older than what they really are, but really they don't have these skills that they need to develop at this age. And I think with everything being online, I don't know if they will ever get to develop those skills because of our technology focused society. So I'm hoping that that's something that will begin to change in the next couple of years. I really hope that we go back to more of like a social emotional learning where, students will learn how to have a disagreement with one another. They'll learn how to cope if somebody is, bothering them, or they'll know how to approach an adult and ask for help when needed. Because I feel like these are a lot of skills that these kids are missing, but unfortunately, technology is not going to help them. So overall, I thought the documentary, The Social Dilemma on Netflix, was really eye-opening, and it made a lot of kind of scary connections between my own students in the classroom and what they were talking about in the documentary. Now, it did come out in 2020, so that was 2 years ago, and I already see how, things have continue to change for the worse. So I'm hoping that we can somehow figure a way to turn that back around and get these kids back on track. All right, so I don't want to end on a negative note. So with that, I will say I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and working with you in this course. And I'm also looking forward to learning how we can better help our students with their technology use.